welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Uh,
Hello, thanks
give
for
a
having
little,
me. I'm excited to be here.
yeah, me too. Excited to talk to you. Do you want to give a little introduction about yourself first?
Sure. My name is Mike Williams. That's the name I go by. And what I do is I'm trading the crypto markets mostly. I have been trading some stocks in the past, but I decided to stick with crypto, and I've been doing that full time since 2019, more or less. I'm a day trader, swing trader, scalp trader. So basically, any kind of time frame I pride myself on being flexible in the market and being consistent with my results. And in the process of doing so, after a while, with all the hardships that I myself have encountered during the process of learning, I founded Thrive Labs, which is where I have decided to teach what I know to other people as well, and making it accessible so that everybody can also learn how to trade.
Let's jump back a little bit, back in time and go all the way to the beginning of you said you started around 2019. So were you a little bit interested in crypto or dabbled in it before then? Like, what's your sort of origin
Well,
story there?
Yeah, for that, I guess we have to go a little bit back in time, because in 2019, I was already at the point where I was already consistently profitable and I would call myself an actual trader, right? But my interest in crypto really started earlier than that. As a matter of fact, it started in the summer of 2017. I already had traded the stock market a little bit all the way back since 2012. However, I have to say I was not particularly successful back then, nor did I understand much about crypto or something like that. And then an acquaintance told me about Bitcoin, and he was actually trading Ripple at the time.
Okay.
And so, based on what he told me about Bitcoin and Ripple, I invested a little bit of cash in Ripple and in Bitcoin, and basically just left it for what it was, trading, sporadically whenever really I felt like it.
What year was
Uh,
that?
but that was in 2017 in the
Okay.
summer.
Gotcha.
And I was not really very good at it or very serious about it. At that point, it was really just something that I did for fun. And I made some money and I lost some money. And when Bitcoin peaked later that year at $20,000 at the time,
Hmm.
I, of course, thought, just like anyone else at the time, that it would just go up
Of
forever.
course, yeah.
But instead, I saw Bitcoin drop all the way to $3,000, and with my investment with it, right?
Yeah.
So that is when I left crypto and trading just alone for a little while, until really I randomly found Bitcoin's white paper in my bag that I had printed out some
Wow.
time before that.
A printed out white paper. All right.
Yeah. So that was the white paper. And back then I worked as a digital artist in the entertainment industry.
Cool.
And I was also lecturing in universities across the country about the latest video game technologies and movies and animations. So I was basically traveling a lot. And this white paper of Bitcoin just happened really to be in my bag while I was experiencing some delays during some of those travels. And I know it sounds cliche, but it really is. When I read that, that was really the seed for that eventually really changed my entire life and my career path as well, going forward from there. Because after reading those legendary 4 pages, I was completely blown away. And since that moment on, I was just obsessed with crypto. Like, everything was around crypto research, everything. And
But
here we are already talking like late 2018, beginning of 2019, which also happened to be that time in that year that Bitcoin also bottomed out in the middle of that year.
right.
And knowing that I wanted to do something in crypto, I just basically decided, like, I'm going to do something in crypto, but I didn't really know yet what that should be. But back in this time, we are in crypto, we're talking already about generations, right? Because every year there's, every cycle, it's basically a new crypto generation arises. It's such a new industry. Every cycle, there's something completely new on the horizon that is, very popular. But back in that time, there were really only two directions you could go, and that was either programming or doing something with charts.
Right.
Um, and there was really not that much else going on in crypto. There were no NFTs, all of that just didn't exist yet. And as I already had a visually oriented and trained mind, learning to read charts made the most sense to me at the time, as I could directly transfer the skill set that I already had over to the markets. And so I started dedicating myself to learning technical analysis, how markets operate, and more importantly, how to adopt a sustainable mindset when it comes to really taking risks and making profits, and more importantly, keeping them as well.
Right.
And already having quite a good understanding of concepts like Fibonacci, as you use that a lot when you make visual images,
Mm,
and that experience in the visual industry, and also having the ability to ask the important questions and research those topics allowed me to be extremely focused and really learn quite fast. And by the end of 2019, I was already making enough money from trading to stop my day job at the time and really start trading as a full-time profession and business. And with having that focus and dedication, I essentially have been successfully trading two entire bear markets, two entire bull cycles since. Yeah, and the rest is pretty much history. And here we are right now, nearing the autumn of 2024.
all
So
right.
that is, in short, my story of how I started to where we are now.
Cool. I have two questions from all of that that I want to hit. One of them, I like the origin story of the Bitcoin white paper coming out, the printed Bitcoin white paper. Uh, it's a almost sacred document for a lot of us. What do you remember
Yeah.
whenever you were reading through it at that time? What's the main thing that stood out to you as like sort of an aha moment?
For me, it was really I've always had a little bit of that rebellious mind. And what for me was very striking, like the technical part took a while for me to understand. It was not something that I immediately understood when I was reading it. But the fact that you own what you have fully,
Mhm.
that was really what was groundbreaking to me. And then reading how that blockchain works, took me a while to figure out, but really understanding that it's this transparent chain where everybody, it's you can look at the transactions and it cannot be tampered with. And more specifically, you are cutting out the middleman, and that middleman is literally an algorithm. And that is really what I thought, what I took away from it at the time, and that I thought like, okay, this is going to be revolutionary.
Right.
And yeah, so that was really what struck me the most at the time I was reading it.
Well, that's one of the main important parts. The second question I wanted to ask from all of that is about the trading. So, you kind of went through the trading and how you had already done some of it, and then you got back into it in the crypto space. So, in those bull and bear markets and everything, do you have any sort of defining moment where you learned a new lesson that you've sort of taken through with you as one of your important sort of cornerstones of that you keep in mind when trading?
Well, there are many, 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 but I would say really when we had, you know, at the time it was called the echo bubble from that bull market when we were rising to $20,000. Then we sunk to $3,000 in the middle of 2019. Then we
Mhm.
rose to $13,000 from the top of my head. And then we basically stayed in a very much sideways consolidated piece of price action at the time. And that is where I actually became really solidly, profitable. So what I'm trying to say here is during that rise, I was already making those profits, but I really nailed it down during that sideways pattern at the time, because I was able to distinguish how that price essentially always drops and rises at the same time, and really noticing the importance of keeping what you earn. And that was,
Mhm.
I think, the biggest breakthrough, and not risking it all on every
Right.
single trade, only riding the big cycles alone. And that is ultimately what really got my foot in the door when it comes to actually day trading.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm guessing you're the kind of person who likes to see a sideways market then.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much for those that don't know me, I'm in my community and those that have been following me over the years, I'm known as the range trader. So yeah, it is essentially the period when most traders are the most confused. That is where I essentially thrive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my specialty.
Oh, cool. That's a good specialty to have. Nice niche.
Yeah, especially when you consider that markets actually consolidate 80% of the time. It's only 20% of the time that they are actually, trending up or down, and the rest
Right.
is usually just sideways. So instead of, for me, just sitting around waiting till, Bitcoin does something, I decided to just focus on, okay, if this is the majority of how price behaves, then
Mhm.
might as well, specialize in this part.
Right. So as beautiful as it is to own your Bitcoin, uh obviously you can't do day trading while it's just in a cold wallet. So
Correct.
you also enjoy the day trading part and you've partnered with Toobit. So can you speak a little bit on that? Like what made you choose Toobit?
Well, one of the biggest reasons, so I was going through the hardships of becoming a profitable trader. I did realize two really important things that are unique to crypto. The first one is crypto is a new financial instrument, and that brings unique market dynamics not really seen anywhere else. And this means that a lot of trading knowledge that you find in books or courses is kind of outdated because most of these books have been written 50 to like 100 years ago.
Wow.
A lot of this stuff just doesn't work like that anymore, especially not in crypto. And then secondly, this relatively young market also has sparked a lot of interest for an entire new generation of traders and investors, those that were too young to get in on the development of internet, for example, in the
Right.
2000s. I myself, I was a kid back then. I used it, but I wasn't really able to capitalize on
Yeah.
on that technological development. And it is those people that are now into crypto, um, and also are in need of education because most documented knowledge about trading, being at least half a century to a century old, does not really reflect the unique dynamics that crypto markets have nowadays. Having struggled with this myself, I found that there's actually a huge absence of accurate and reliable trading education out there, and that is eventually why I started my YouTube channel and why I founded the Thrive Labs, which is where we do all the trading education, where we built on those established foundations and adapted to the new market dynamics. But more importantly, making it accessible to the new generation of traders. As I like to speak in understandable language, provide insights that traditionally only have been really available to hedge funds, professionals, and institutions.
Mhm.
Now, and then Toobit really for me comes into play when it comes to applying these insights and education. It is and has been my main exchange for over a year. And after having traded on nearly every single exchange, you can probably imagine that for extended periods of time, what eventually drew me and kept me at Toobit is really the professional approach the team has, the long-term vision of growth, and the ability to pretty much grow significantly in a very short amount of time, which is honestly very impressive, especially with so many exchanges, especially the cycle just popping out of the ground. And
Mhm.
to me, that proves that integrity is high on the list of Two-Bit. And now that the industry is also growing and maturing, that need for integrity and proper education becomes really necessary, in my opinion. It's time that we, bring it to the next level. And I think Thrive Labs and Two-Bit both recognize that, and by combining those strengths, we can, fill up that demand where it currently, in my beliefs, is still lacking.
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay. Is there anything you like uniquely about the two-bit interface when trading? Is there any feature that
yeah,
you
good
tend
question.
to rely on?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Well, For example, I like what I use a lot. It's not unique to Toobit per se, but I do like the hedge mode a lot. But
Mm,
what I do really like a lot, and is actually a little bit of a cost saver for myself, is the amazing P&L analysis that Toobit actually has. Normally, I use like third-party software to create my journal and to make my results insightful.
mm.
Doobit has pretty much like a done package, already integrated in that, and that does help a lot as now that it's all consolidated on basically one platform. So I can trade on it, but I can also see my results in such detail that's yeah, that's quite unique. So and that is one of the reasons why I like Doobit so much. Um, yeah, and I also really like the break-even indicator, which is a really small thing, but something that is really unique for Two-Bit, where after you enter a position, you pay some commission fees, right? You pay
Mm,
fees
right.
in order to get into that position. Now, what Two-Bit does really nicely is it shows you the break-even number that you need to be break-even after paying those fees. So
Right.
it's a small thing, but that to me really shows that Doobit understands what traders need and want, and that is one of the reasons why I really like Doobit.
Okay, cool. I like that answer. That's specific, seems small, but
Very
it's nice.
specific. Yeah.
As far as partnering with Two Bits, how do you see yourself sort of as a spokesperson? Do you combine it with the Thrive Labs?
Yeah, so I think what is also really interesting about this, and the reason why it piqued also my interest to start working together to this degree, is that currently there's, to my knowledge, no other exchange that works this closely with actual traders that have that level of knowledge and really understand how the market operates. I think the benefit of such a collaboration is that through this collaboration, we can really absorb, verify, and process information directly from the source, while at the same time also have combine our platforms to reach a wider audience. And in particular, the audience that seeks and needs that education that we aim to provide. And for Tubit also to have access to an experienced community of high-level students and traders also helps Tubit further to tailor the platform based on what traders really need, rather than doing what all the other competitors essentially do. An example, or I have two examples. For I already mentioned one, which is that break-even thing. It's just a
Mm,
really small thing, but if you're trading day to day, it's really helpful, when you're getting in and out of trades throughout the day. These fees can definitely cut a little bit of a hole in your capital if you take a lot of positions. So it's just like this quality of life feature. And now also this the most recent slippage campaign, which is something that a lot of people experience. Now that Tubit, to me, that shows that Tubit understands what traders are struggling with, and this, by actually, talking about the fact that slippage exists, that it happens, and Atubit says, okay, if it happens with us, then,
mm,
we take responsibility. I think that is such a great example, and I think that paints a good picture of, that integrity that I personally seek,
mm.
and that our visions align in that sense.
Cool. Speaking of the integrity and also speaking of Thrive Labs, we didn't really delve into how Thrive Labs started. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that came up to be?
Oh wow, yeah, wow, that's an interesting question. A good question. Thanks for asking that. Actually, it does make me think about it. I guess it really originates from, I think, me starting a YouTube channel and founding Thrive Labs really comes from, I would say, a counter reaction of all the inaccurate information that I found on the internet.
The internet, inaccurate information. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I really, when I was searching, when I was learning how to trade, that is where I really found like, you start following some older knowledge, that
Mm,
is written from some old books or some people that have a very high follower count, and then it doesn't work. So the accuracy of that information completely lacked. And at some point, when I developed my own strategy, because I'm basically self-taught, because the books didn't give me the information that I need, the internet didn't give me the information that I need. When I had it all figured out, I thought, now for me, instead of just only capitalizing on the market and extracting profits continuously for the market, uh, I want to do something more than that. I want to also contribute to the industry in a way. So what can I do? Well, I have the knowledge. I have already been teaching before.
Right.
So why not do it, but then try to educate people about the markets? And that is really that's what made the foundation to do it, really.
Okay. We've talked a little bit. You like the sideways action, you like the day trading, but you can do all the time frames.
I basically trade everything as long as it's volatile.
Okay, gotcha. So
So the
you do,
volatility is absolutely key for me.
so I guess nowadays you don't do too much of the long-term holding, or do you do that sort of in the background?
Investing is for me completely something. It's completely unrelated to actually trading, because the moment when you start actively making decisions about your
Mm,
position, that is really when it becomes trading. Now, naturally on swing trading, I'm not I'm not managing that trade every single day per se, but I do make decisions there, whether to hedge or whether to take profits. That for me is where it's starting to enter into the realm of trading. And those
right,
swing trades obviously run for a longer period of time. And while I wait for those to play out or get invalidated, because trading is not only about winning, it's also about taking losses.
right,
I day trade my way through to the really big macro key levels where it meets the swing trade essentially. And then I scale down again. When a day trade, let's say it's in the morning, we're trading London open session, for example, and we're transitioning into the New York session. I like to also scalp my way through to those levels if the volatility is there, because especially in this environment where we are currently trading, basically for the last 6 to 7 months, it's not always suitable for scalp trading. Altcoins, however, they do have those opportunities. But that is basically how I what my day looks like, really.
all right. Well, we've talked about this a little bit. You've talked about taking the losses, so that's also in some sense stopping in the bigger loss. And
Yeah.
then, of course, just as important is taking the profits, and then also not just immediately putting those profits into some riskier trade. So I guess that's a pretty complicated question, but if you have a simplified way of how you sort of manage those risks, how would you say you do that?
Well, I think it all has to do with. Um, I think the biggest issue I think that traders have when they start to trade is that they're more focused on what they can get out of the trade rather than what they're actually putting at risk. For me, and that forms also the fundament of what I teach, is defining that risk first place, right? That is where it all starts. And the trade for me is only worth it if I can if there's the possibility to extract more from it than I have to risk from it, right?
Right,
Only then I'm taking that trade. Of course, it can be invalidated, but then also once it's invalidated, I'm out. And I think what helps a lot with coping or dealing with losses, better said, is that have that figured out before you even click any buttons.
right.
Figure out what is your risk, figure out what you can get out of it. If it, if you can make $20 while
Mhm,
risking 10, it's a good deal. So why not do it? But at the same time, if you lose it, you know exactly what you're going to lose. And
mhm,
psychologically speaking, if you have that figured out and if you have accepted that that is a possibility, before you are actually in the trade, that helps your process of learning really tremendously. And that helps you deal with these losses
right.
um very quickly.
Do you think that Do you think you learn the same way if you're doing simulated trading, or where does that fall in? I guess at some point you have to dive into the real thing. Where would
Yeah,
you put
so
simulated?
when you're learning how to trade, I would definitely recommend starting off with, simulated trading or paper trading. However, it's not necessarily the real deal because the reason why I have never done it is because you know that it's not your own funds,
Hmm.
and that can, in the beginning, it's great to start off with, obviously, but at some point, you have to transition to trading with your own real money, even if it's just a few dollars,
Right.
because you're looking at the things differently. Your experience, you have to go through the experience of sitting in the red, or you have to go through the process of sitting in the massive green, and maybe you're looking for higher targets, but maybe you should take some profits now just in case it goes down.
Right. Yeah.
The intricacies you can only experience when you're actually trading real.
Right. Yeah, especially for the danger of like trying to wait and take the bigger profit. That it's really hard, I guess, if you're doing simulated trading to have that pressure on you because you're like, let's see if I can make it even bigger. It doesn't matter.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So, what do you think Bitcoin's doing these days? What do you think the medium to short term outlook is?
Yeah. I think a good question. Very good question. Um, what I think, honestly, is I think at this point, what Bitcoin needs is a shift of dynamic, in my opinion. It seems to me that everybody in the whole world is in a it's fine because it's a bull market and we're going to 100K soon mood. This is reflected also during the summer, where the majority is literally because I use order flow to so I can see the orders coming in, and that way you don't need to read news, you don't need to read anything, you just see what is happening with the buying and selling of the derivatives market. And during the summer, the majority of those that were trading literally was carelessly longing, like with hundreds of millions at random price levels where there was no technical confluence or no real fundamental reason to buy exactly at those price points.
Hmm.
uh, that shows to me that there's a lot of greed going on in the market. And you might make the argument like, but we have the fear and greed index that at the moment is almost at all-time lows. I do think that there is longer term observation of this metric does show us that it switches to bullish back to bearish extremely quick. So let's say Bitcoin tomorrow, at least in the summer, it was like did from 50K to 60K in one day, which did happen. Immediately that goes like, goes up to 80. So that to me shows that overall there's a lot of people are waiting on the sidelines, people are bored in the market, and those that are trading are extremely bullish still. So the lack of participation and that, well, not necessarily lack of liquidity, I would say,
Hmm.
does make that metric go a little bit bipolar
Right.
almost. And um, this does not really represent their trading intelligence or ability to trade profitably if you see all those longs coming in. But I do think we do need to go to a point, a price level where that mindset shifts perhaps to bearish. And I
Hmm.
think that is where the bottom will be. And at the moment, I'm just opening this week right now. We are now post holiday season. We already have our first week of trading in that new season completed right now. We are now starting to slowly but surely seeing a little bit of that shift. So I do think we are potentially close to a bottom, right?
Hmm.
However, time wise, however, if it's going to be right here or if it's going to be at $47,000 or lower 40s, that remains yet to be seen. However, having experienced multiple cycles right now and knowing exactly how Bitcoin behaves, I really would not be surprised to see lower 40s first before we actually see a true reversal.
So do you think in the zoomed out a little bit, do you think we're in the cycle of a bull market still?
Well, I can actually, let me share my screen so I can actually
Sure.
show. Let me share that screen over here. Let me share
All
that
right.
chart.
Go ahead.
Let me know if you can see my
Yep,
screen right now.
I can see it.
Right. So what we're looking at right now is very local analysis. So actually, let me switch over to, let me just put everything off and zoom out to that local picture. As you can see, I am currently just day trading as well, but on the 15 minutes in this case. But let's say if we zoom out to the 3-day or even the weekly chart. If we're really looking at the chart and studying some classic patterns,
Hmm.
mind you, what I said in the beginning, that those classic patterns rarely work out in crypto. But at the moment, it does look like we are maintaining that bullish market structure, putting in a high, putting in a higher low, higher high. This was when the ETF got approved in January this year, higher
Okay.
low, and continuing that trend. So realistically speaking, technically speaking, when
Hmm.
you can you officially say that Bitcoin is in danger of losing its bullish momentum? Locally, you can already see significant signs of weakness at the moment, but it is really not until we lose those lower 40s until that
Right.
structure is actually broken. If this
Hmm.
happens, that would be a moment where reflection is required and observe what is going on here, because that would break that structure. And that is really below $40,000. Anything above still can be classed at the moment as a potential bull flag. Now, this is where I would like to return to what I said earlier. This does not necessarily represent the reality where bull flags always just play out perfectly like this. So that is why I'm open for lower prices first before we are actually starting to reverse in this way.
Right.
Um, and based on everything I said, I think that's definitely a probability, 100%.
Gotcha. Is it just me or does it feel a little bit like compared to the last bull market? I don't feel like I'm seeing as many big projects and sort of innovations going on yet. There's some
Yeah,
out there, but it's still very
yeah,
Bitcoin dominated, isn't it?
I agree. I mean, every cycle there's like a new narrative. Last
Mhm.
in 2017, it was the ICOs and Ethereum. Last cycle, it was NFTs, for example, was really big in
Right.
DeFi.
Yeah.
This cycle, thus far, the majority is being put on. I think a lot of people were done a little bit with all the seriousness, and they were like, okay, let's just do some fun stuff, not have like any serious white papers. Let's make some meme coins, and that has been the dominating
Oh,
narrative in
yeah.
this cycle. But we also see now over the summer that also has, you know, definitely lowered a lot in activity. Um, so it remains yet to be seen what is next. Uh, Personally, I had my fun with meme coins for sure, but I'm gonna have to agree with you. In the end, I want blockchain as a whole to succeed. So I am
Right.
looking forward to what's next and see some real projects coming out of being born and being
Yeah.
developed. And
Okay.
yeah, that could drive a new spurt in price eventually. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just me. I'm just making sure I'm not crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree with you definitely on that one.
All right. So before we wrap up here, you've kind of gone over a few things, but we haven't talked too much about people starting out, although you do provide plenty of information for them. So do you want to throw out any of your main tips or advice for people just starting out in crypto and especially crypto trading?
Yeah, I would say time is the most important thing. So I would say if you're interested in learning how to trade, you can learn from various sources, whether that is from Triflips or elsewhere. Uh, I would say embrace the process of learning. Trading successfully really means you're able to extract profits from the markets in any kind of scenario. One loss doesn't make you a bad trader, and one win doesn't make you a great trader either. contrary to what you might see on, on the internet. It really is the longevity that counts, and with that, trading is a marathon and not really a sprint. Losing it all in your first few trades, simply you're robbing yourself of the time that you need to really get that experience that you need. Because trading, you learn trading through experience. One trade is not a full-fledged experience. You need hundreds of trades to actually know what kind of trader you are and understand how that market works. So I would say make sure you find a good source to learn from and stick with it for a while. Investing in that education will, in the long run, will pay off much more in the long run rather than just dumping your cash in the market and just hoping for the best. And yeah, starting small is definitely an important thing, and just start with learning about risk management. If you want, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to make some,
Oh, go
to
ahead.
of this, but we have an academy with actually a free course. You can do it in an hour, and if you just follow exactly all the steps there, you already have your risk management under control. You can do it in an hour. It's not that hard. So that's a great starting point. And from there, stabilizing that portfolio, that's where your actual learning process can begin.
Gotcha. That's good. I like that. You're right. If you throw it all in and you lose it, then you're messed up. And if you throw it all in and you win it all, you're also probably messed up because you're going to do that again and then lose it.
Exactly. You're going to mess up
Yeah.
later, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
And I do speak from experience as well.
Yeah, oh, oh. Going
Yeah,
all
I
in,
mean,
YOLOing.
we all start at the same level,
Right.
including myself. I wouldn't call myself like a day one genius. I've learned it through a lot of pain and blood, sweat, and tears in the end.
Right. A day 90 genius.
Perhaps,
Kidding.
perhaps.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, and it was really nice to meet you. And thanks for partnering with Toobit as well.
Thank you very much for inviting me and bringing me on
Yeah,
to this interview. I think it was a very nice conversation we had.
yeah,
So
I
thank you very much.
enjoyed it.
Nice to meet you. Likewise,
Thank you.
and see you in the next time.
Yeah, see you next time.